Are you listening?
Welcome to Insequeer the podcast. I'm your Insequeer as fuck ass host, Chloe Beck. And if you are here, you are queer or you love my queer storytelling. And bitch, when I tell you I have a story to tell you today, once again, buckle up. Okay, so as you've been hearing, like I just been in this weird place of I can't and my past coming back to bite me and me not making the right decisions and all this random shit about things that you literally cannot change, Chloe Beck. You can't change them if you wanted to, but you kind of have to acknowledge them, to work through them, to make peace with the fact that they are never going to be something that you can go back in time to change. I mean, let's be honest, they still haven't mastered how they let you use your damn cell phone in an elevator, or that's just me as a Sprint/T-Mobile user. So for those of you who can search the web from a submarine, fuck you. But anyway, I say that to say, welcome back. And also, if this is your first time, you know I gotta say it, go back, please listen to season 1 of Insequeer the podcast. It kind of helps chronicle all the shit, although it's not super chronological, like it just helps you not pop in. But also, I can't police your listenership, so you do what the fuck you want, as long as you're liking, rating, subscribing, sharing, streaming, viewing on YouTube, doing all the shit that you need to do to make sure I can keep doing the shit that I'm doing. But anyway, back to the topic. There's been an episode that I've been trying to sit down to record, and it's on a topic that I'm so unsure how to engage with or how to bring it to the space. But in thinking about that topic and having a random conversation with my mother recently, something has come up, or something has been unavoidable. Like, no longer can I ignore this topic, and that topic is my insecurity around my relationships with men, most specifically due to the fact that I don't have a standard, typical, can point him out in a lineup, father, not even a father figure. I don't have a father. And in my life, I think it kind of is obvious outside of my story about Uncle James. You never really hear me mention men in my life. Like, the men in my life always played second fiddle to the women in my life, or I don't know if it's because nature versus nurture, having a queer mom or always having these dominant women in my life, but like I really don't know how to engage with men in a meaningful way. And I mean, science, statistics, Instagram, YouTube, Iyanla Vanzant, they all say, you know, it starts with those parents. It starts with that first parental relationship. So I think I want to sit here and talk about my relationship with my father. I don't even, like, I always want to be petty and like, you're not a dad. Like, I am so ill-equipped to have hatred for this person, or like for what the father is supposed to be. Like, I don't even know what it's supposed to say. Like, it takes a real man to be a daddy or a father, or like whichever one is the one where the nigga really don't deserve the title. But oh, I know the one you girls use, sperm donor. So we're going to talk about my sperm donor, even though my mother wasn't in she wasn't in a clinic looking for this donation, which I think that's exactly where I have to start. My relationship with my father was broken from inception because he raped my mother. And it just doesn't get any more obvious than that as to why he's not in my life, right? So while this is all folklore and or second hand in the key of Zora Neale Hurston, like oracle knowledge, from what I have eavesdropped on or heard or just context clued for myself, is that the man who raped my mother was actually dating my grandmother at the time of this assault. And I don't know any of the details. I don't know any of the stuff. Like, one of the first lessons I learned about this man is that he raped my mom. So I always picture this brutal, gruesome, I picked you up and put you in a truck and like assaulted you or did all those things, which all of this could very well be true. I don't know the ins and outs because I wasn't there. I was just created there. But when I heard that I was a product of rape, I always just assumed it was this person that had no connection to my mom or to my family in a specific way. But as time and as truths come out to you as you mature, I learned that he raped my mom and he was actually dating my grandmother. And looking back at their relationship, so many pieces are being filled in for me about it, you know. And then before I get off topic about my mom and my grandmother's relationship and things like that, I kind of want to stay on topic for once. So the only time I ever remember hearing about this man, seeing this man, knowing this man existed, was when I was about 5 or 6 years old. My mom and I were in Cleveland. Well, duh, that's where you grew up, Chloe. We were at one of our neighborhood liquor stores, which is on Broadway. Broadway in Cleveland, Ohio, has this really big shopping center. It used to have a Finest, if you're from the Ohio or know that chain. I think it turned into a Stop and Shop, but it would have like a Payless. The Subway was something that I always remember. Like, the smell of the Subway was so... I don't know what the hell Subway is doing now with this mystery tuna meat, but back when I grew up, Subway was premier, like fresh, and the bread smelled great and all these things. So, but the reason why I say that is because there was this massive liquor store, probably the first time I ever saw a liquor store that had aisles as if it was a grocery store, right? So like there was like 3 or 4 aisles, and like I am still a product junkie. Like I should have went to school for marketing, which we'll circle back to that later. But even as a little kid, I was allowed to walk up and down these aisles and just look at the bottles and look at how they were packaged. And there was just this beautiful place of glass, browns, clears, dark liquors. But the funny thing about that state, it was called a state store. My mom called, oh, I'm going to the state store. The state store smelled it smelled like Subway because Subway was next door. Like the state store smelled more like Subway than the fucking liquor store. And like that is always a memory that is going to be connected to this moment where I met my father. So one random day, like I remember, I'm literally out of body. I remember seeing little Chloe, just excited to go to the state store. Cause like this was, my mom's an alcoholic, a drinker, a connoisseur of cognacs, if you will. And this was something where we did. And this was the one time where I really was allowed to kind of like be away from her. Not that she was a very hands-on mom for multiple reasons. Probably this rape is part of it. But so I remember about the state store. I used to kind of walk the state store by myself. I was always trusted not to touch, not to break. But I spent a lot of time at my eye level looking at all the bottom shelf liquor, which is probably why I was a bottom shelf bitch for a while. But this particular time we were going into the state store, and my mom stopped and had a conversation with this man. He was wearing kind of like, you know how like the old school mechanics used to wear like those, I guess I would have to say like Dickie style suits where you get like the patch with your name on it. His was blue and like greasy, and he it's very obvious that he's a mechanic or works in the car industry or something like that. But like he wasn't dirty, but it was like one of those worn pair, and he had on a ball cap. And I can't quite remember the facial features. I just remember him being dark skinned and you know, whatever. And I remember just standing outside, just ready to get into the liquor store. And could give a fuck less about what they were talking about. But I vividly remember he put his leg up on the front bumper of his car, and he pulled out this wad of cash, like a old school nigga, probably don't know what a bank is, a wad of cash. And he unrolled a $5 bill and he handed it to me. And me as a kid, like, nigga, all I know is this is my key to my Hostess Debbie cakes, my strawberry shortcakes, my Flamin' Hots, even as a little kid. But back then I wasn't a Flamin' Hot kid. I was a Ranch Frito kid. And if you remember Ranch Fritos, please drop me a line on Twitter or on Instagram, because so many people from my generation who I've engaged with over the years are like, what the fuck is a Ranch Frito? A Ranch Frito is the best Frito you'll ever have, followed by the Flamin' Hot Frito, followed by the barbecue Frito, followed by the plain Frito. And then they did that twisted, okay, fat bitch, sorry, moving on. So he hands me this $5 bill. I vividly, like, it's just like the movies. Like, I looked up at him and all I saw was like the sunshine on his dark skin. Like, it's like a movie in my mind. And it was like, thank you. And we were on our way into the state store. And as he hopped in his car, we pivoted, and my mother was like, that was your dad. And I literally was like, oh, okay. Like, I don't have a context for dad because my whole life men aren't that role. Like, my brother and sister they have the same father, and he was very active, hands-on. But he died when I was young, around the same time. But even as a young kid, I remember a slight tinge of jealousy, because there would be times when he would engage with them, or he would come over, or he would pick them up or drop stuff off for them. And it would just be for them, because they, you know, I instantly knew for a long time that I was different from them in relation to this person who did nice things or came around. But it just wasn't once similar to the Uncle James being found dead, like they never sat me down and said any of these things to me. So I just learned how to maneuver life without these things, right? So then we fast forward to Chloe Beck being about 16 years old in high school, and still, like, luckily for me, I grew up in an area where a lot of niggas didn't have their dad, or if they did have their dad, he was a crackhead, or if they did have their dad, they were in jail. So it wasn't like I was literally, the only time I saw that dad was Heathcliff Huxtable or James Evans, like dad, or like fucking the Brady dad. Like, even that is a scam because that nigga was gay and died of HIV and AIDS. But the only thing I knew about dads were these fictitious things that I saw on TV, because I'm like, it must be make-believe. Like, dads must be something you only engage with on Nick at Night. Like, it wasn't Danny Tanner. Like, loved Danny Tanner. Like, I was like, oh, but I never loved him like, ooh, I want them to be my dad. It was always, I always had an affinity to the women in these narratives and in that story. But I say all that to say, at high school, I finally started to engage with, so like, oh, that's something I want to make crystal clear. The truth about all of this, and the reason why I'm addressing it, is because the make-believe and all of the excuses that I've been making for my family about why my life is the way it was, or why we had the relationships we had, all those like things that I held on to as truths or armors to make excuses for them are starting to fall down. And I said that to say, in high school, I saw people who had a lot of dad experiences or knew their dad, but once again, I only knew one black girl who had a mom and dad who still lived in the same house together at that time. Yeah, there were girls who dads would give them money, buy them Jordans, do this thing, but it was never this nuclear experience of mom, dad, family. He teaches me how to drive. He makes sure my virginity is safe. Like, I never had that. So I would make excuses. Like, in middle school, grade school, nigga, that was the norm. Like, if you had a dad, you were the weird one. Like, we would be like, who didn't hurt you? So then I get to high school, and I went to a high school that was on the other side of town. And as you'd imagine, going to, I told you I was Mr. Clark. I started out in the hood, ghetto, and then I pivoted to a high school that allowed a lot of us underrepresented people to bus over if we joined like ROTC, or I think Ford Motor Company had this Ford Scholars Program. Like, you had to almost kind of like picking a major, you had to opt into one of these extracurriculars to get to go to the school, or you had to be an athlete, because they were back then scouting and recruiting to build teams then, which illegal, or ethically not sound. Or, hey, I'm so glad whoever they picked to get out of there, because I remember all my friends on track, all my friends on basketball. That's probably the reason why we made it to college, because we didn't stay at Mr. Clark's school. But so the only people who I saw who really had dads, or like really had that nuclear experience, were like white or white passing, or I had a huge Latinx population, or like one of my best friends at the time was Lebanese. So like, I had that type of ethnically diverse experience. And of course, those people had moms and dads, right? Dads who were doctors and lawyers and engineers, or whatever they did, they had the family unit. So Chloe Beck and her mom was like rationalizing it. They're not black, so of course they don't have this narrative, because they're not black. Black people are the only ones who are supposed to struggle and come from broken homes thanks to slavery. But even then, like, I had one black friend who had that dad, and we were all envious, jealous of her, and like, just, she was different because she had a dad. But at the time, because she was in the minority of the dad havers, it was still one of those like, damn, she's super sheltered. Damn, she can't do this. Damn. And then it was like, damn, but she got a car. Damn, she's an active virgin who has not been molested, raped, assaulted, touched by her cousin from which she shared. You know, like, she didn't have that trauma. But once again, that was an anomaly. So it was like, you can't really rest your head on, oh, woe is me, I don't have a dad, because this one person seems to have a great dad, when I got 99 problems, and one of them was not a dad. Like, it's just, it was hard to see that. And then as I moved throughout my life, like, even the men in my family who are alive, like, I think about older cousins, I think about my Uncle Porter, like, who was my Uncle James's older brother, like my grandmother's older brother, and like, he was the man left kind of in the family in terms of the elders, and he was like a butler for my grandmother. Like, he would clean her shoes and take out her trash. And like me and my sister would joke, he'd be like, I did this, I did that, I did this, I did that, I did this. I took out the trash, I wiped out the dog, I cleaned the refrigerator, I mowed the lawn, I cleaned the drapes. Now can I have $5 for a beer? Like, he was like her servants. A lot of men have always been servants to the women in my life, or like the women just were so strong that while my mom is the only one who I think was not even out, but was queer, even the women who I don't like, my cousin Harry, love of my life, like she had three kids. You never really saw a man, like you just, like they did the sex, they had the children, but it wasn't like, I've never seen a single woman smitten over a man in my entire life. So that coupled with my dad raping my mom and whatever that narrative is and whatever that was like, and how disconnected she was, like to look the person who raped you in the face and have whatever that conversation they had when I was young, and for her to just be like, oh, that was your dad, like it just seems so bland in my life in terms of how to maneuver that dad narrative. But, and then you go to college, and once again, it's still that same narrative. Nobody's dad was around. Like, niggas, y'all are deadbeats. Like, we are making it to college. We are doing all this stuff. And like, even the friends who I know who did have their dad, like, they're like, oh, he was an ex-crackhead. Like, he wasn't around, or like the war fucked him, or it was always that female living. Women had to raise us all, like that whole generation of people I engaged with vividly. One of my sorority sisters, the love of my life, like her dad is in her life, but like because her parents were estranged, and she leaned toward her mom more because of, you know, her mom's circumstances. And it was always a disconnect between dad and daughter where I came from, right? So as someone who's a media buff and obsessed with media, even when I think about Bill Cosby, and I used to say, he's the reason why I went to college, he's the reason why I did this, and like I was so hurt by these allegations, but I made peace with it because I did know my story. And I'm like, men do rape and women do put themselves in these positions to be assaulted, or you blame the victim because what other narrative do you know? Like, and I still don't really want to talk about the Bill Cosby one because I have a lot of questions and assumptions and really shitty things to say, even as someone who's been raped, right? Because it's a community, right? Like, deep down, I think it's my fault that I was assaulted, right? Of course it's your fault you were assaulted or getting assaulted by boys who were so much older than you, because you're the one who left you in the house with 2 preteen to teen boys, you know? You're the one who dropped yourself off at a house full of boys who you're play cousins with. You know, you're the one who didn't tell anyone because there was no one to tell, because you were either at home alone or you were dropped off in the hands of your assaulters. It's your fault, Chloe, right? That's what I tell myself. Like, I was a willing participant in some points because my body worked and I understood sex, kind of, I think. And it's like, it's so crazy. Like, I recorded an episode about assault and molestation that I'm gonna release it, but I just want you guys to know up front, it is aggressive and it is angry and it is a lot of things that just kind of came out. But like, I say all that to say, I've always made peace with the men doing what men do and being trash and not knowing how to maneuver that space of men. And it wasn't until recently my partner and I were sitting literally in this room on the couch. For those of you who are watching me on YouTube, watch me on YouTube, like it, comment, you do that. And I'm obsessed with Chris Lee Knows Best. Like, for those of you who don't know, it's this white man who clearly gives you all the gay vibes that are possible, but he's just this flamboyant Southern man who I think he got wealthy in real estate, and he has this picture perfect family, that Southern charm. But I think it started in Georgia because of his tax problems. He moved to North Carolina. Anyway, he failed up like most white men do, but he has the textbook family. Like, it's one of those, like, it's almost making fun of like the Brady Bunch or like those Leave It to Beaver type families, but it's just so flamboyant and funny. And it's him, his wife Julie, and they have 3 kids, an older son. Oh, he has 2 kids from another marriage, but that's none of my business. It comes in later, but I'm not going to spoil it all. But the family who is this show is before his first 2 children in another marriage, which they're fucked, and they're fucked because it was who he was, but he pivoted and found a family where the finances and everything worked. I think he married up, but that's once again not my business because I love this show and I love them. He has an older son. It's an older son. The middle child is a daughter who's Savannah, who we're obsessed with. We love her. We love everything she does except her new haircut. And then there's a young son. and he is on their ass. Like, did you brush your teeth? Did you do this? Like, they're the kids who definitely had the braces, definitely went to the best schools. They all learned how to drive at a normal time because he was there and he was involved. And the funny shtick is he's always in their business. He's always fucking around with like trying to set them up or fix their relationships or do all this other random shit that apparently a dad does. And there was one time my partner and I were watching it, and he just said something that just like, the tears already filling in my face. He was like, I'm always going to be in your business because you're my kid. And he was talking to, I want to say Savannah. And it just, it stung. For some reason, I heard it different. And maybe it's because my mom is ill or getting sicker. And I you know, I guys always talk to you about how I don't know what time I have left with her / thanks to COVID and mental health and just exhaustion. I don't even know how to be here for these last moments, these last years of her life, because my life has, I'm here. I'm in New York. She's in Ohio. And it does more to my mental health and my finances to engage than it does to just take a seat back. But I do think that, coupled with just me realizing that regardless of what I saw, regardless of misery loving company, regardless of all 95 people who were my best friends at some point not having a dad, it didn't make it okay that I don't have a dad. And now that I am maturing and I'm older and I'm starting to look at all the areas in my life where holes were placed and I had to jump over them and I fell through most of them, I'm learning things like, while you still don't have the language to say, I wish I had a dad, I need a dad, I miss a dad, what would my life be like if I had a dad? Would I be a lesbian? If I had a dad who was in my face and cared about me, would I have been molested and raped? And could I have chosen to give my virginity to someone? And all these things. My mom recently, back to that Chris Lee Knows Best story, like me and my partner spoke, and I think she could hear it or see that it was just starting to weigh on me. And I just said, like, my whole life I thought dads were this fictitious thing that, you know, a script that someone wrote. But like, even though Chris Lee is scripted, those are in fact his children. And I do believe that even though he hypes it up, or they hype it up for the humor of the show, and now that I work in a place where I see parent after parent after parent drop their kids off, pick their kids up, send their kids thank you baskets, I love you baskets, it's your birthday baskets, or I see kids who have always had a parent or parents there to support them in a way that I didn't even think was humanly possible. Now the deficit of not having that relationship is starting to really add to this is why you're 34, 24, if you ask me. This is why you're of this age and you have to start over, because you do have to go back. Like, you do have to go back. You have to go back. You have to go back. You have to heal some shit that you didn't even inflict on yourself. You have to do all this work. And I even had a revelation with my partner, like as of 2 days ago. And I said, thanks to one of my mentors who talked about how the people who rub you wrong at your job, you need to really look at those relationships and realize that it's probably not them. It's some shit from yesteryear, the wonder years of your life. And something that has always rubbed me the wrong way in my career is, outside of 2 supervisors in my entire career, but in my entire professional career, I've only had male supervisors. And that's not true. Like, they became all of these things that I needed them to be, but I never felt this domineering relationship to the women supervisors. But I've always had a really hard, tumultuous time, a fear-induced time with the men supervisors. Granted, I have to acknowledge a few things. They've always been white men, or like I've always supervised white men. Like, I've never gotten to supervise a black woman, a brown woman, like anything like that. I've always had to be in the supervisor sandwich with white men. And then even like people who in my current work, where I'm just like, I just want so much more. I just want them to see me or acknowledge me or engage with me or just see my worth. It might not even be I need them to see my worth, because like, I am phenomenal at my job, and like, fuck who believes it or not. Like, the people who know it, and that's the ones who should know it. But what if it's that secret, deep down, subconscious need of like, good job from a man who is an authority in your life, like a father would have been. And then that coupled with the conversation I had with my mom recently, she randomly asked me like if I was still speaking to my half sister from my dad. My dad, another thing about him from what I've gathered, he has, oh, I didn't tell you, the other time I saw him, see, I gotta go back. Aside from the $5 time when I was probably five, $1 for the year of my life that you weren't there, I was about 16 in high school. I told you I had that one friend who had a dad, but then somehow my mom finally got him for child support. So like, aside from him being a raper, apparently he denied me, lied on me, like lied on my mom. I think they went to court about it. Like he completely, I guess they didn't have Maury back then. Like, nigga, swab a cheek, this is simple. But back then, I don't know. But to the point where he never had to financially be in my life, as well as wasn't going to be in my life physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you know, paternally, none of those things. Around 16, I think he made a mistake on his taxes or something. And apparently, like, he's been a very successful truck tire company man. Like he has a company that replaces the truck tires on like 18-wheelers. So imagine how much a fucking 18-wheeler truck tire costs. I can't do that math. I don't know how much a regular tire costs. So fuck me. My mom used to always get them from the Goodwill secondhand. So it'd be like $25. And then we do that 6 times when she could have just probably paid $125 for a good one. But that's none of my business. Not my business. Not my business. Quantity over quality when you're poor. So apparently he fucked up somewhere and filed something under his name as opposed to his wife. Like, he's married, has, you know, apparently he has a bunch of kids outside of that marriage to this lady. The sister who I met, I was 16, she was 40. And when I say met, I mean we spoke on the phone. And then I found out that he is a Rolling Stone. And for those of you who are not in it, that means wherever he lays his hat is his home. And when he's done, all you're left with is a child in his narrative. So he fucked a bunch of bitches or raped a bunch of bitches, had a bunch of offspring, to which he abandoned all of them, except he found his princess and married this lady and formed a life. And in doing so, he would put all of his taxes and all of his documents in her name, so they could never run him for child support. Niggas who scam be scamming. So he fucked up around my 16th birthday, and then they called him for child support. I remember getting like 2 or 3 checks, to which, when I say let's read my mom, whatever. And in doing that, the minute he had to actually start paying, he reached out and wanted to have a relationship, I guess, to see where his money was going all this time. Niggas ain't shit, okay? So, and in doing that, I'm sorry, you might hear a lot of noise outside. They're actually filming a whole TV show in my front yard of my apartment. So this is New York. It's a New York podcast. Enjoy the sounds. So story goes, she finds out, the government finds out, because we were on welfare, let's tell all the truth, that, oop, this nigga done fucked up. We got him. Checks start coming. Shortly after that, I get a phone call from him, but it wasn't him, it was his wife. Like, his wife was on every phone call. It was like Charlie's Angels. Like, they would just, I couldn't even have a moment with him because she was so involved. Whoever this lady was, I don't know her, never seen her, none of that stuff, but she would be on every call, like always ear hustling, like tapping, watching me, like this lady. And the conversation was really bland, and like, I didn't, even then, I'm like, whatever, nigga. But he said 2 things to me, and I will never forget them, because this tells you how I went so long with saying, you know what, fuck that. He, in one of our conversations, he's like, you know, I really want to get to know you because, you know, you got a sister. And I'm like, yeah, I know I got a sister. I'm thinking about the 40-year-old sister that I've already engaged with outside of him. And I was 16, keep in mind, Chloe Beck, 16. He's like, no, she's 13, we adopted her. Even at 16, I knew that was some bullshit. Now, 34-year-old Chloe's going to talk about what that hurt felt like. So here you are having she's spoiled twice. That's a Color Purple reference, and I'm not spoiled twice. For those of you who don't know what that means, she's had 2 children. But I'm thinking spoiled in the sense of not a virgin, because you can't be one when you can't have a voice, whatever. But here I'm your 16-year-old biological child. You are talking to on the phone. The second time you've ever heard my voice. The first time I didn't even speak because I was 5 and didn't give a fuck, didn't know to give a fuck. And you're telling me about how you want me in your life because you now have a daughter to which you have adopted. And you're talking to your daughter who you you raped and pilgrimaged her mother, which in turn in the DNA of me told me that rape is okay because rape is how I got here, which is why I never spoke up about any of my assaults or touchings or playing houses that turned into home of hells. Yes, still to this day, I am just, wow, sir. And then he did the ultimate nigga thing. He's like, okay, so on Saturday, we gonna come pick you up. I'm like, what? He's like, on Saturday, we gonna come pick you up. We're gonna spend the day. It's gonna be fine. And we're gonna, trying to keep this up. We're gonna do this more and more. Now, I've seen one too many Tyler Perry movies. I've seen one too many black mamas doing shit that black mamas shouldn't do, so I can't put it past her. What I can do is tell you that Saturday came. I got dressed. I sat and I looked out the window of our apartment. Every hour on the hour, I looked out looking for this man. He said he had a van looking for him. The man in the van who raped my mom, who's gonna come scoop up me so I can meet his adopted daughter and his nosy ass bitch ass wife who's a cock blocking ass bitch who knew about me this whole time but chose. Women ain't shit either. Black women, stop letting these niggas rule your life and don't fuck it. If a nigga gonna fuck over his previous family, his previous kids, what the fuck you think he gonna do to you, you dumb bitch? But whatever. Not my narrative. But Saturday came and Saturday went. He never came. No explanation. No, I'm sorry. No, nothing. And then the last time I ever heard from this nigga, because I guarantee you he's dead, and now I'm going to tie that in later. Chloe Beck, was graduating. I think I told this story somewhere. I don't know. Maybe on the podcast, but I'm going to tell it again. I was graduating, had 5 tickets. Cousin Harriet definitely getting a ticket because I had broken my ankle. I talk about that on the episode, and I needed she took me to school for a whole year, and my chauffeur because I couldn't get in and on and off the bus. My grandmother, because bitch, are you dumb? Have you heard me say anything? My grandmother, my mother, my sister. My cousin Harriet actually couldn't go. My grandmother said she wasn't feeling well, so then that left a seat open for. I did an episode called 5 Failed Friendships. My first failed friendship, Devontae. I'm saying his name. I don't give a fuck. So Devontae, my sister, my grandmother, my mother, I have an extra ticket. Out of nowhere, close to. Now, I'm senior class vice president. I'm graduating in the top 20 of the overall school, top 5 of my school, because we have 5 schools inside a school. Weird situation. I marching band, ROTC, super decorated student. Got accepted to all 5 colleges, had made my choice, going for full ride, a success story who did not need this nigga, right? But because I was young and angry and whatever the case may be, he called me and was like, hey, can I come to your graduation? Bitch, no. Fuck you. And my narrative back then was, you didn't help me get here. Why the fuck would you come to the end? Who the fuck are you? Why? You don't, nigga, you raped my mom. You should go to jail. I could take you there. Go to jail. Ain't that what Meg Thee Stallion said? Nigga, fuck you. No, you can't come. So I had that ticket sitting on my mom's bar for 3 years. Nigga, fuck you. But now Chloe, who's 34, who couldn't have foreseen how amazing graduation would be, our keynote speaker, a man who we vetted him, this amazing businessman in Cleveland, Ohio, super Cleveland famous. He was our keynote. And the day that I was supposed to meet him with our exec board for graduation, because I was senior class vice president, I actually had an ROTC thing, so I couldn't make it. So I had no idea how. I have no idea to this day how. But literally at graduation, in his keynote, he spoke about me for 10 minutes. Just pointed me out, made me stand up, and just spoke about me. And I just, to this day, I wish technology was what it was, because I don't know if any of you all are my friends out there and you have our graduation and you have that footage. I pray for the day when it's time for them to do an expose on me and all these people can pull out pictures of me, because I don't have any. But if anybody has that high school graduation footage where that man spoke about me, please send it. I'll pay for it. I'll do whatever it takes. And the whole time looking over my life now, it's I wish that man was in the audience to really sting him, to let him hear how amazing I was, because he wasn't in my life. But you don't know what you don't know, and I didn't have the fortitude to say fuck you in that way. My fuck you is no, you're not welcome, not come on in and see what you missed. But I don't know if either one of those are correct, but the truth is that is what happened. So, excuse me, fast forward to a few nights ago, my mom was like, hey, have you spoken to your sister? And I was like, no. Like, when me and this lady engaged, she was a cool 40. I was 16. I didn't get a phone until 18. So, like, I was talking to her on my house phone. How the fuck would I remember her number, her name? Like, I don't even know her name. I couldn't point her out in the lineup. Don't know her. The only thing we had in common was that we had a deadbeat dad who probably raped our moms, right? Excuse me, I had to take a drink. I'm learning how to not give a fuck and just take a drink. And she's like, you think your dad's still living? I was like, no, that nigga's dead. He's old. He was old as fuck. Why would he be living? And she's like, no, he probably still living. I was like, well, he's dead to me. And when she said, I understand, it just broke something inside of me. Because I don't. How can you be dead to me when you were never alive with me? And it just, the venomous part that came out shocked me because I typically, Chloe Beck has a comment about everything. I have a comment, I have an opinion, I have thoughts. But when it comes to Chloe Beck and fathers, I literally have no opinion. When people talk about their dads, I sit there and I'm just, bitch, I had no opinion. I had no feelings. I also had no hurt at what I thought. I used to always just say I was better because he wasn't in my life. I was better because he wasn't in my life. Better. But now through multiple therapy sessions and previous sessions, abandonment is what fuels my life and makes me stay when I should go. And it has allowed me to play part in the majority of, if not all of my abusive situations, because I just don't know how to walk away from someone, because everybody who I've ever loved and or cared about or thought were genuine walked away from me. So I never want to inflict that pain on someone else, even though sometimes it hurts me more to stay. But in that conversation with my mom, it made me have to tell the truth of, I deserved a dad. I deserved a father. I deserved a man who would love me strictly because of who I was, not how wet my vagina is, or how great I suck a dick, or how I can joke with you about the coolest shit and then blow your mind sexually, but also say I don't need you or your money. I deserve a dad. I deserve a man in my life, because I think everyone deserves a father figure. Now I can use that word. I think everyone deserves, especially Black women, especially women, especially even as a queer woman. I still, as a queer woman, there's nobody else that I wish I had in my life to talk about this shit than a man, right? And not only did I deserve that, I have been at a deficit without it. I have had to be the man of many of houses. I have had to accept so many things that I don't think I would have accepted if I had one man in my life to say this is not it. And then because of emasculating women in my life who had their own man narratives, like imagine being my grandmother and knowing that the nigga who you was dating, liking, loving, fucked your daughter, and by fucked I mean raped, because I'm not gonna get off his neck. The nigga raped my mom, raped her. And then she gave birth to a kid. And then I think about, I have to sit down, I'm like, was my grandmother so terrible to my mom because she didn't believe that he raped her? Was she so terrible to my mom because he did rape her and my mom told her? Was she terrible to my mom because all other shit? But furthermore, was she so kind to me because I looked like him? Because she dropped the ball with her daughter? And then I think about how there are certain things that she did for my brother and sister that she didn't do for me. And I'm like, did she not do this to me because of that narrative? So now it makes me question. When you learn more about your life, you have to plot. Okay, so I love this. You know, I always think about stuff like this as a person, like a little kid. Remember how you see those cute little videos where a baby puts on their glasses for the first time, or they get their hearing aid for the first time? My whole life, I've been walking through life with this one set of glasses. And now that this new set appears, you have to turn around and look over your whole life and figure out what that vision is now. It's like when they put a piece in there, that piece just like illuminates a narrative. So now I have to go back over every Christmas, every birthday, all these things, and think about, now that you know this piece of your truth, how does this play into your truth? And Something else that happened about this dad narrative, like, that really hurt my feelings. It's hurt my feelings so much that I don't even really talk about it, is that maybe 6 months to a year ago, my mother told me that my father lived 4 streets away from where my grandmother's home is to this day. The home that I thought was home, the home that I pseudo-inherited when she died, the home that I ran to every Christmas break, winter break, spring break, the home that I slept outside on the porch the week that she died because people who she entrusted with her estate changed the locks on the door, and because I didn't know any better and I had to be nearby, I slept outside on the porch in Cleveland, Ohio, in the ghetto in 2012. I slept on my grandmother's porch because that is the only home that I've ever known. And then I think about Chloe, who got a 10-speed bike and rode that bike 4 streets to the left, 4 streets to the right, up and down. And I wondered, did I pass his house? Did that nigga look out and see me? And then if my mother knew this, who my mom is oblivious to everything. She's still she's on this journey to find her dad now, even though he's dead. But she's on this journey, and I think that's why it's coming up for me, because now that her mother is gone and her mother and her mom's narrative is out of her way, now she's looking at this other side of her life just like I am, because I'm my mother's child. Like, we imprint on these kids. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I was listening to one of Oprah's podcasts, and this lady talked about how parents are selfish and how no one should opt into being a parent until they fully have raised themselves. And that's powerful to me, because she spoke about it from a lens of, when you hear most people talk about, if not all, most people are creating a child so they can raise it to have the things they didn't have, to do the thing, like to fix their trauma. So if you grew up never getting Jordans, your kid gonna get every Jordan. I always gotta bring it back to sneakers, right? I even say, like, as someone who is completely unsure, leaning towards don't want to have a child traditionally or at all, when I do let myself go there, I think about all the things I'm going to do for my kid that weren't done for me, or all the things that were done to me, I'm going to make sure weren't done to them. And maybe I should spend that time healing those things in me so my kid can live their life. Because, hey, I'm going to say my kid can never go hang out with their friends and spend the night, because when I spent the night, I got molested. And so then my kid's going to raise up and say, I'm going to let my kid go out because my mom never let me go out. And then that kid's going to get molested. You see that? It's a continuous cycle. And you can do and be and try. But, like, a lot of us have a lot of shit with our parents or our upbringing that we think we can rectify in parenting, and you can't. You have to rectify that shit in you, because most of us who are really doing the work and working on that shit realize having another kid, adding another person to this bullshit, unnecessary. Having kids is the unnecessary, and I applaud you and I love them. I want to hold your baby. I want to be your auntie. I want to be the one to buy them their shoes. I want to do all that shit. But the reality is, I know so many people who have kids who didn't need them because they needed someone to love them when they were a kid. You know, having a kid does not fix the abandonment. Having a kid all it does is make you be the complete pendulum opposite of what you experienced. I don't know a lot of people who can say, I was molested my whole life and still can let their kid be free, or, like, you know, not bring that to their children. But I've off topic. So I see my mom trying to really connect to this other side of her life that was always just blocked off because my grandmother was an anchor in our life. And for a long time, I thought being an anchor was great because she kept us sturdy and solid, but she also kept us tethered to narratives, to life, to all this stuff. And I mourn for my mom because she's looking for an apology from my grandmother that she literally will never receive, because my grandmother has been dead for however many years. And I mourn for her because she was so busy chasing that mother's love, which I haven't even gotten there yet, mother's love, that she knew who her dad was all along. She was close to her grandmother all along, but because the people are terrible and they keep secrets, stop keeping secrets from your children. It will haunt their lives. You know, and I think about how my mother being a product of rape, my grandmother was raped by her sister's, brother, husband, partner, don't know. And then gave birth to a rape baby who was then raped multiple times, and then who gave birth to a rape baby who refuses to give birth to a rape baby, but still lives a raped baby narrative. But when I said he was dead to me, see, I always get back. My mom, every time I talk to my mom, she brings up her dad and how she's trying to figure it out. And like, she literally Nancy Drew detectiving. Oh, it was this man. Oh, it was this man. Oh, it was this man. And it saddens me that as someone who is nearing the end of her season on this earth, and I'm going to stop putting that on her. I don't know my mother's life. I don't know her health. I just know that with me not being in her space and being able to fully have a full picture of what's going on with her health and her life, and her being so far into alcoholism that she can't cognitively share a lot of things, I don't see her living to be Cicely Houston. Excuse me. I don't see her living to be Cicely Tyson 96. I don't see her living, you know, to be Betty White 99, given her current health and things like that, coupled with COVID, coupled with all the things. And so I'm going to stop putting a timeline on her life. But the truth of the matter is, as someone who, as they are maneuvering through their adulthood, their senior citizenship, and having this wanting and this longing for a father, it saddens me that she didn't think to free me from that same narrative. It hurts me that she can talk to me about everything and everybody, but couldn't tell me. She didn't tell me that she got raped. She actually told one of my exes that I'm a product of rape. I always knew it, but she confirmed it out of her mouth from one of my exes, an ex who didn't deserve that truth, but you can't help what you can't help. And it would have been really interesting for her to say, hey, your dad lives on 142nd Street when I was 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. But now that I'm in New York City, and Cleveland, Ohio can literally catch on fire before I move back there. It can cry me a river, ho. Like, Cleveland can die, R.I.P. in relation to me going back there. Now, there's some people I love there. I hope y'all get out in this narrative, but it's just so sad to me that she would not, could not, did not say, look at how hard my life is. Let me not do that to my child. But she didn't. And that's why I'm here recording and saying something that I don't even want to say. I'm saying it because I have to say it, and it has to be true, and I have to mean it. I forgive that man. I forgive him. I forgive him. I forgive him. I forgive him. I forgive my mother, because look at her life. What the fuck could she have done? How could she? How could she? We expect so many people. And that's another thing about being a parent. You have to be prepared to be the worst enemy, best friend, provider, freedom fighter. You have to be prepared to do all these things for your kid in an intricate little ballet. You have to stage it on a tabletop, like Aretha Franklin said, because a part about me and my maturity is that I have way more empathy than I have anger. And I need to work on having a little bit of both, because it's okay to be angry about this story I just told you guys about my raper. Because he raped me too. He raped my whole life by the way he raped my mom, and imprinted that trauma into my life, and has shaped the ways in which I have maneuvered spaces my entire life. He soured me for men. He soured me for ever having the tools to successfully navigate them, my sexuality, my worth. The nigga couldn't even teach me how to drive. Dads do that, right? Well, I wouldn't know, because I had a student teach me how to drive. But I forgive him, because as sure as I'm sitting here, he is dead, and he got away scot-free. But as sure as I'm sitting here and how I'm starting to believe in all the things, karma's real. And Zora Neale Hurston, she has a quote, and it's just like, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, it's beyond me that you don't want to spend time with this, that you don't enjoy this company. Dad, father, you missed out. That nigga missed out. When I tell y'all I'm the coolest kid you will ever have had, he missed out on humor. He missed out on love, kindness. He missed out. I feel bad for him that he missed out on me, because I would have brought more to his life than he ever could have brought to mine. I'm living proof of that. But my need to forgive him isn't for him. It's for me, because I need to learn how to make peace with what he wasn't, understand what he was and apply that to where I'm going, because I know there are going to be many more men in my life, a lot of which were going to work for me and have to learn and do for me. And I, dare I say it, am going to work for a lot of men until I don't have to. But hell, even Beyonce worked for somebody, and somewhere down the line there's someone you answer to. But I don't want to carry this foreign, like, a dad. Not having a dad makes me feel like everybody else who really engages with a dad or has a dad, even if it's a bad narrative, it's like a language that I'd never learned. And it's like a dominant language. Like, men being oblivious to the patriarchy, literally and physically and emotionally, and like being oblivious to it when now you can't ignore it, coupled with like, I should have learned these lessons or had these lessons a long time ago about men and how to maneuver them and what they need and how they need it, and advocating for what you need to someone who could never really understand you. I gotta start doing that kind of work, right? So his name was Norris Thomas. Norris Thomas. What a cool name. That would have been a cool name. My dad's name is Norris. Norris Thomas was my father's name. He was at least 15 to 20 years older than my mother. So if she's in her late 60s, he's in his late dead. Or he's alive still, four streets away from my grandmother's house and living his best life. But I can't go and find that out. I've recently, in the past year or two, have tried to search him in our paper in the obituary section. I search his name to see if anything pops up. Nothing successful. So maybe he is still alive. But I don't think that in this day and age, in this time, a sit down, a red table talk is necessary. But it is necessary for me to say out loud that I didn't have a dad and it hurt me. And it's hurting me, present tense. But I don't want to be hurt by it for too much longer. So I forgive him. And while I do not condone or appreciate and how I wish I could be a kid who was conceived on purpose in a prom night or on a wedding night or the apple of a dad's eye, or like, while I wish for all of that, we found out that hell, even Heathcliff hurt people. Chrisley don't know best. My friend whose family, who had a perfect, picture perfect family, wasn't perfect. No one's perfect. But now I can kind of to create normalcy around the truth and not put these images on these pedestals all the time. I don't have to keep thinking dads are this thing, because I have real-time experiences that dads aren't always that thing. Sometimes dads molest children. Okay, let's talk about that. But not right now. It's not my narrative. Can't speak to it. I can give you some assumptions. But just really, really, really being honest and seeing how something you didn't have literally impacts the way you move forward and all the things that you do have. And I gotta go because I had to get that out before I didn't, because I've been nervous to talk about it, and it might come up again. But at the end of the day, all the shit I can say, I forgive him. I don't know what happened. I don't know the truth. I don't know the narratives. For all I know, the day that he was supposed to come, my mother called and said, fuck you. You've hurt her enough. If you're not going to be consistent, don't. I would love to think my mom advocated for me. And while that wouldn't have been what I wanted, maybe that was the protection I need. Because I do believe my narrative of I'm better because he didn't show up. Because imagine what Chloe Beck would have felt like engaging with a 13-year-old adopted kid who gets 24 hours, 365 of this man, who gets to learn how to drive, who gets to be walked down the aisle, who gets to be told, hey, I don't know what happened to you before you got here, but now that you're here, I'm going to protect you. Assuming, because like I told you, this nigga had kids all over the diaspora. I don't know his dad language. You know, and the only thing that my parents used to say, by parents, I mean my mother and my grandmother, cousins, people who raised me, they would always say, you need to know who your siblings are because you might fuck them. You don't want to have a baby with your brother. You right. I don't want to have a baby with my brother. But luckily for me, I'm a dyke, and if I fuck my sister, no baby's coming out of it. It's a really weird story. But if any woman in my DM or on my Tinder or trying to holler at the kid, once the kid pop off, if your daddy, your uncle, your cousin, if you know a nigga named Norris Thomas, you can't get none of this English muffin, baby, because that ain't how this party. English muffin implies nooks and crannies. Well, vaginas have nooks and crannies. I'm off topic. But thank you all so much for being my therapy. Thank you for listening. And if this unearthed any of your dad, mom, relationship, family, man, trauma, are you queer because you're molested? Are you queer because they didn't love you? Are you supported in your queerness by a dad? Whatever this brought up for you, please take time to sit with it and not, I hope I don't trigger, or I hope I don't hurt, or I hope I don't, it's never my intention to bring up shit that we can't address or handle, but like, I am just one bitch living one life, telling one story. But I do want you to know that just like me, insecure about dads and men and all this stuff, it's okay not to have all the answers. It's okay to be hurt. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be venomous. But because I keep listening to Oprah's Super Soul Sunday podcast, one of her guests talked about how he hated his dad, and it wasn't until he was at his dad's grave and said, I forgive you, that his life got better. Things changed. And I want to do whatever it takes for my life to continue to get better, because my life has been phenomenal with all these roadblocks, mentally, emotionally, physically, self-induced. If my life, Jackie Joyner cursing me through all these brick walls, what the fuck is gonna happen when the walls don't exist, bitch? The momentum. Pew! We out. And because I've been forgetting, I'm gonna end it with a question for once, because this was a heavy one. What would your dream relationship with your dad look like? Is it one that already exists? Is it make believe? If you could say my dream dad would be, if it has to be a movie character, whatever, what would your dream dad look like? Tell me in the comments, drop it below. Once again, your insecure as fuck ass host, Chloe Beck. If I'm insecure about my shit, I know you're insecure about your shit, and we can be insecure together, and we gonna get through it. We always do. And like I always say, Black Lives Matter, especially Breonna Taylor, and shout out to them doing one thing right and acquitting all charges against her boyfriend. That's the least they could fucking do. And I hope they get it. You know, Breonna, I think about you every day. Just want to let the world know. And I also want to say I'm wearing my Bowling Green State University Black Alumni Council shirt. And I also want to send a heartfelt condolences to the young man who, a white Greek organization. I want to make it crystal clear, because the minute I saw it, I made sure it wasn't a black Greek-led organization, but we're all Greeks together. In the news, a young man who was pledging a fraternity on my campus, my home campus, where everything happened for me that I would love to have happen again. He lost his life due to alcohol hazing, and now the entire campus and all the Greek life stuff has been kaput and is there on a standstill. And I think students are protesting and all that. But the truth is, a lot of us join these organizations because we're looking for that brotherhood, sisterhood, because our family life doesn't allude to it or give it to us, or some of us are only children. I don't know a lot of people's narratives, but like for me, I joined because I wanted family and connection and commitment. So my heart goes out to Bowling Green State University. My heart goes out to that young man and his family, and I thank them for donating his organs. And I am so very sorry that this happened, because as someone who would have done anything and damn near did do anything to get into my organization, looking back on it now, it wasn't worth it. It's not worth it. Your life matters more. Letters are great, but you can go buy them. You can lie. You can make up your own organization, come up with your own rules. Don't let peer pressure put you out of here. So for those of you who are interested in Greek life, I know a lot of people, my listeners, are trying to do Greek life even as adults. You are now grown. So the shit that you would have done at 18, you better not be doing it at 30. These organizations will not bring you back to life. They can't even give you life. They can't get you the jobs you think they can. Sometimes they can. I'm lying. That sucks. I'll take that back. But all the accolades and all that stuff. I know people there are some people who I engage with, and like, I look at their cover letters, resumes, because, I do a lot of random shit with my life. And I'm like, I know for a fact this person's Greek. You get through there, no Greekness. You don't need to be Greek to be great. You need to be alive to be great. All right? So, I'll see you soon. Bye.
Are you listening?